a fool to join the army and be all that you can never be. But one thing that you will be is dead.
The name Africa is not the true name of this land. And by the time you finish this, you will feel it. Not just know it, feel it in your chest. Because this is not a history lesson. This is a reckoning. This land, the oldest land on the face of this earth, had a name before Rome existed. Had a name before Greece was a civilization. Had a name when the rest of the world was still figuring out how to survive. And that name was taken, quietly, systematically, with full intention. But before we get to that name, and we will get there, and when we do, you will understand why it matters so much. You need to walk through what was here first. Because the name is just the surface. Underneath it is an entire world that most people have never been shown. Let us go back, all the way back, to when this land spoke for itself. This land was never one thing. That is the first truth most people miss. When people say Africa, they imagine one place, one culture, one story. But this land was a universe, a collection of civilizations so layered, so complex, so deeply developed that even now, with all our modern tools and technology, historians are still uncovering things that rewrite everything we thought we knew. There were people on this land who built in stone while others were building in mud. There were people here who mapped the movements of stars with accuracy that modern scientists have confirmed. There were trade systems here connecting the interior of this continent to the coasts of Arabia, India, and China, not hundreds of years ago, but thousands. There were legal systems, spiritual philosophies, medical practices, architectural techniques, and agricultural methods that were so advanced they became the foundation upon which other civilizations built their greatness. And all of it was happening here, on this land.
Huge community in Africa that they know a tradition, that they are Hebrews, that they're from child of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. They know it for sure. You have communities that are running services and prayers by the halakha, keeping Shabbat and eating kosher. They know their roots. Like, you can't argue with them. They're stronger than you. They will tell you who they are. They don't ask you even. And they have the Bible and it's all written over there, and they don't have no problems in life. Except that we're not able to accept them, to recognize the godliness of the holy tribes that is treasured inside their souls. And you have the problem not recognizing your own brother and not understanding that there's a way to let him back in. Because we have today all the power to do that. We have all the sources, we have the land, we have everything we need, except of the key to our hearts that is still missing.
I made this video, I don't know if they're going to delete it or not. I put it in a comment, it was deleted in a matter of seconds, so we'll see. What the comment is I was addressing the African American community to tell them the truth that I had found. I didn't know the truth, and a lot of white people cannot accept it because it truly does cut like a knife. It truly does cut. And I myself ran away from the truth and faced Yah's wrath for running away from that truth. And he brought me to my knees into repentance for what my ancestors have done and what they are doing today. I mean, to the point I was losing I was vomiting, and I'm not going to go in great detail, but I mean, he brought me to my knees and had me to the point that I was doing that, and in the middle of it, I'm apologizing to him and thanking him at the same time. How's that real and that's serious? Okay. Now, what my ancestors did 400 years ago, when they took your African ancestors into slavery, they rewrote your Bible. And in doing so, they changed your Messiah's name. And they are keeping the black man mentally enslaved to the white master, Jesus Christ. That is not your Messiah. That is not your king. The true king is the black Hebrew king, Yahushua.
Talk about it because I'm seeing it more and more and more. So we're going to look at a list of black women that have been unalived by the non-melanated. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because there's this growing narrative, okay, about black men being, the ones who are always out here abusing and unaliving black women. And I'm not saying that they don't do it. They do. But the difference is that when a black man does it, they say all black men are bad. All black men are bad. All black men are no good. All black men are this and that. And black men get such a bad rap. And so what happens oftentimes is sisters will be like, yeah, I'm just going to go to the non-melanated because I'm sick and tired of you brothers. You guys are just, you're no good. And it's all that are no good, right?
And the Lord our God said, don't marry them.
Out here doing the
God
law by
forbid.
good black men, good family men, good fathers, good uncles, good everything, right? But as usual, the narrative is different when it comes to black men. So the reason why I want to outline the non-melanated that are doing the same thing to black women that everybody wants to complain that black men are doing, and all black men.
I believe you can find it in the book of Malachi.
Clean and balance, so I'm going to bring it, right? So, hello, Buck Horse, how you doing? So we're going to look at a list, and as I go through the names, I will stop and give you, some information about what exactly happened with these beautiful sisters. And then we'll talk about it some more, because it's something that, we need to really have that conversation to say, why is it that we, and I'm not just going to say black women, I'm saying black men as well, there seems to be a sense of complacency, a sense of false security. We would accept something that we wouldn't accept if it's a black person, a black woman, or a black man. And I'm talking about right down to aesthetically, the looks, the traits, all of that stuff. Their status. We'll be so quick to be like, oh, well, So why is it that when it's a non-melanated, we have this? They're just, you feel like you've hit the lottery. You stepped up. So we're gonna have that conversation. But let's just look at this list, and then, as I said, I will stop and we'll talk about what their situation was here. So we'll get started.
It's Janine Chapman.
All right, so Janine Chapman, he was a former personal assistant to Sarah Ferguson, the Duchess of York. James Michael Patrick is the person who unalived her, and she was his wife. She was 46 years old, and this happened in their downtown Dallas apartment in 2023. He was sentenced to 72 years in prison, and they were only married for a short time. But in that short time, their marriage was plagued by domestic abuse. Okay, so that's Janine Chapman. That's her husband.
In the first place.
James Michael Patrick. Let's keep going.
Rest in peace, Ashley Hennings.
All right, Ashley Hennings. She was unalived by her husband, Jordan Hennings. And he apparently had a lot of hatred in his heart. And the hatred that he had in his heart was for his wife. They had a strained relationship. There was camera footage of him shouting at her. And then he used his weapon and pew-pewed her while she was sitting in a chair. And as she lay there, secreting on the floor, he pew-pewed her again. So that's how she was unalived.
Rest in peace, Donacia Holloway.
Donacia Holloway was 22 years old. South Carolina is where she resided. and she was unalived by her ex-boyfriend. That person there, his name is Justin Cole Carroll. And this happened in 2021, and it was a domestic violence incident. And she actually recorded this on her Snapchat. And he approached her in her vehicle, and he was sentenced to 60 years in prison. And fortunately, because of the Snapchat, that was like irrefutable evidence, right? So he at least got 60 years, but he should have gotten life. Anyhow, so that's what happened to Donisha Holloway. Let's go on.
Rest in peace, Bianca Rayner.
Bianca Rayner. So police say that the person that unalived her, his name is Harold Bennett, was a level 4 S offender. Okay? And he unalived her and was charged with first-degree murder. All right, so let's keep going, because I brought a few examples, because I think it's very important.
Rest in peace, Monet Newton.
Monet Newton, 24 years old. She was found unalived alongside her boyfriend, as you see there, whose name is Chase Cooper. Actually, let me rephrase. It was her ex-boyfriend, Chase Cooper. And this happened in Arizona. And she was getting ready to graduate from a master's program and was pew-pewed. And it was a unaliving slash unaliving. It was a self-decided unaliving by him for both of them. So both of them were unalived, okay? So, we're moving on now.
Rest in peace, Joy Risker.
And so we have Joy Risker. He was a polygamous evangelist, a preacher, and he was married to Joy Risker, and he apparently had some sort of controlling nature. He had another wife, even though he was a pastor, or evangelist, or whatever we want to call him. He had another wife, and they had a baby. They were married, they had a baby, then they have a second child, and then Joy started saying to him, listen, you need to make a decision here. We're not going to be living this kind of life. And then miraculously, she went missing, and the next thing you know, it turned out that she was unalived, and he ended up being the one that did it and was charged with her unaliving. That's a pastor family.
Rest in peace, Shade Robinson.
So this one was a recent one that we heard about. She went on a date with this man. It was a dinner date that they went on for drinks and dinner on April 1st, 2024. And Maxwell Anderson, he's the one that unalived her, and her parts were found scattered all over. Yeah. And so this man, he unalived her, as I said, and this was a date. And apparently they worked together, so she knew him for a little bit, and obviously she trusted him, and they went on a dinner date, and next thing you know, he's gone.
Rest in peace, Tia Spearman.
Tia Spearman. The person who unalived her, his name is Guy Wayne Lynch, and he actually testified that demons made him pew-pew her. She was 21 years old, and they were living together, so this was his live-in girlfriend. And he's also a former motorcycle gang president. He got sentenced to 75 years for pew-pewing her in the head.
R.I.P. McCara Page.
McCara Page, 24 years old. He was from Reading, Pennsylvania, She was unalived on January 19, 2021, after a violent domestic incident where she was hit by a vehicle. And the person who was charged, his name is Joseph Alley, and he was charged with her unalivement, okay? Let me just go over. We already talked about Monet Newton, Roy Risker, Friday
In peace, Tia
Robinson.
Spearman. In peace, Tia Spearman. R.I.P. McCara Page. Rest in peace, Alexis Wall.
Okay, Alexis Walls. Alexis Walls was pew-pewed by her partner 15 times in front of their toddler after he accused her of cheating on him. So she was 30 years old. He is 30 years old, and she was 23 years old. And this happened inside their Bryan, Texas home, as I said, in front of her toddler, who was 18 months old, and he was just feet away. So he grabbed the pew-pew after he accused her of cheating and insisted that she was being unfaithful. And then he called 911 and said that he had done it, so he admitted it after he did it, okay? So he pleaded guilty, and he was sentenced to 50 years in prison. So another relationship, and he said that, he accused her of cheating. So he said, "You were cheating on me." And he insisted that she was lying. I guess she was trying to, convince him that she wasn't. And so that's what he did.
Rest in peace, Rania Lewis.
Rania Lewis.
Try Nature Made Zero Sugar Gummies. The gummies you love, now with zero sugar. Secret Clinical gives me triple sweat protection. Whew, thanks. Secret.
Don't kill your dog.
Hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, back.
What's wrong with...
I want you to do something right now. Look at your clothes. The shirt you're wearing, your pants, your socks. If you can, check the label. What does it say? Probably something like 60% cotton, 40% polyester. Two types of fabric blended in a single garment. Now listen to this. Leviticus 19:19 says word for word, "You shall not wear a garment made of two kinds of material." You just violated a biblical commandment right now while watching this video, and you've probably violated it every single day of your life for as long as you can remember. But here's what really caught my attention when I started studying this. If someone gets a tattoo, immediately someone jumps in with Leviticus 19:28. The Bible forbids it. It's a sin. God condemns it. And they're right that the verse exists. But those same people wear mixed fabric clothing every day, and that commandment is only 9 verses away. Same chapter, same book, same God speaking. So the question is unavoidable. Why do we choose to obey one law and discard the other? Who decided which Old Testament laws are still in effect and which aren't? And what does the original text actually say about tattoos? Because when you open the Hebrew, what you find is something most churches have never explained to you. And let me make something clear from the start. This video is not to condemn anyone who has tattoos. And it's not to say, do whatever you want, everything is allowed. This video is about doing something we should do with every Bible verse we quote. Open it, study it, understand the context, look at the original language, and be honest about what we find. Because if we're going to quote the Bible, let's quote it properly, completely, without cherry-picking only what suits us. And to do that, we need to start with something that completely changes how we read Leviticus 19. This chapter isn't a random list of disconnected rules. Biblical scholars call it the Holiness Code, and it's one of the most structured texts in the entire Torah. Every commandment is connected to the one before it and the one after it. You can't rip a verse out of the middle and ignore everything else. It's like reading a sentence halfway through and thinking you understood the whole paragraph. Look at what surrounds verse 28. Verse 26 says, "You shall not eat anything with the blood." Verse 27, "You shall not round off the hair on your temples or mar the edges of your beard." Then verse 28, "You shall not make any cuts on your body for the dead or tattoo yourselves." Then verse 29, "Do not profane your daughter by making her a prostitute." And verse 31, "Do not turn to mediums or necromancers." See the pattern? Blood, ritualistic hair, body markings, sacred prostitution, mediums and spiritists. All of these things have something in common. Every single one of them was a religious practice of the pagan peoples surrounding Israel. The Canaanites, the Egyptians, the Babylonians. God wasn't giving a list of aesthetic preferences. He was saying, do not practice the rituals of false gods. And this is crucial for understanding what comes next. But before we go to the original Hebrew, I need to show you something that almost nobody mentions when discussing this topic. Something hidden in plain sight in verse 28 itself. Read the full verse again. It says, "You shall not make any cuts on your body for the dead or tattoo yourselves." Did you see those three words? For the dead. They're right there in the text. The vast majority of the time someone quotes this verse, they say, the Bible forbids tattoos, period. But the verse doesn't say that. It says, "You shall not make any cuts on your body for the dead." There's a specific context. There's a reason. And what was that reason? What was going on with the dead? In the ancient world, when someone died, the pagan peoples living around Israel had mourning rituals that would seem extreme to us today. The Canaanites would cut their skin as a sign of grief. They made deep wounds on their arms, their chests, their faces. They believed that shedding their own blood could appease the spirits of the dead or win the favor of their gods. The prophet Elijah witnessed this in person. In 1 Kings 18:28 it says, "The prophets of Baal cut themselves with swords and lances until the blood gushed out." That wasn't normal mourning, it was a religious ritual, a blood offering to a false god. And permanent marks on the skin served exactly the same function. In Egypt, in Mesopotamia, in Canaan, marking the body with permanent symbols was a way of declaring allegiance to a specific deity. A slave bore the mark of his master, a soldier that of his general, and a worshipper the image of his patron god. Getting tattooed wasn't going to a studio to pick a cool design. It was a religious act that meant, I belong to this god, my body bears his mark. And recent archaeology has confirmed all of this in ways ancient commentators couldn't have imagined. In Egypt, mummies with tattoos dating back more than 5,000 years have been found. But notice a fascinating detail. The archaeological evidence indicates that in ancient Egypt, tattoos were limited almost exclusively to women, and they weren't decorative. They were placed on areas of the body associated with fertility, the abdomen, the thighs, the breasts. Archaeologists believe they functioned as protective amulets during pregnancy and childbirth. They were invocations to fertility goddesses. They were magic. They were pagan religion engraved directly on the skin. In Canaan, the land Israel was about to conquer, evidence shows that instead of ink, more extreme methods were used. Scarification, branding with fire, deep cuts that left permanent scars, all linked to religious rituals to honor their dead or invoke their gods. And here's something almost nobody mentions. The Code of Hammurabi, dating to approximately 1770 BC, several centuries before Moses, already documented that skin markings were used to identify slaves. If a slave tried to escape, the mark on his hand or forehead would give him away. It was a system of ownership engraved in human flesh. And where were the Israelites coming from when they received these laws? Egypt. They had just spent 400 years as slaves. 400 years watching Egyptians mark their slaves to identify them. 400 years being someone else's property. Professor Mark Chavalas of the University of Wisconsin suggests that the Leviticus prohibition may have had an additional reason. Freeing the Israelites from the symbols of their slavery, God was saying, "You are no longer anyone's slaves. You will not bear the mark of any human master, and you will not bear the mark of any false god, because now you are free, and you belong to me."